Let's roll, man. All right, Anthony Angelillo, branch manager over here with the Tag Team, powered by Paramount Residential Mortgage Group, CEO, founder of Tag Team Nation, co-host of Damage Control, top originator of the year, and interview tomorrow with Top Agent Magazine, which is a very difficult magazine to get into, but I was nominated, so now I have to pass for an interview, and there's a lot of interviews, so we'll see. Hopefully I get in that magazine. It's only for top agents and top loan originators, so I was very thankful for that nomination. That being said, I'll leave it to my co-host.
Hi, everyone. Melinda Grimaldi, real estate and title attorney, and Grimaldi Law Firm, the closer's title, and excited for all that's coming and what I'm working on this year, for the rest of the year, for next year. It's going to be I'm making some big moves. So
what moves are you making?
Well, big moves for me is I'm looking to hire an attorney. That's a big move. I've never had another attorney on staff. So I'm changing it up a little bit. We're going to add a few extra service areas and doing a few different things. So I'm excited about that. I'm also nervous about it, but we'll get there. Right?
Why are you nervous? Why are you nervous, man? That's awesome. That's
I know it's awesome, but it's also like
crap.
I know, but it's also going to be, it's a new venture. It's a new thing. I've never hired, I've always hired someone with no experience and trained them, which always worked really well for me, but I can't do that for like this high level position. So I need someone who's a licensed attorney that's been doing it for 4 or 5 years. And it's pretty huge for me. Like, that's a big deal, like a different way to hire that. There's a different way to, there's like an offer. It's like very different as a business owner. It's like, I'm putting my big girl panties on today.
But what about, so difficult in the sense of what I mean, you have all the LMOS systems and everything in hand. Like, so she's just going to follow instructions. She'll give you input. Are you worried about that or what? I'm curious.
No. I just, it's
new venture,
new things.
Yeah.
So it's just, new things make us feel uncomfortable. Right. So I've had the ad to post. It's been 2 weeks. I don't know why I haven't posted it yet, but anyways, that's where the mind plays tricks on you, right? Like, oh, I'm too busy to do it. So, the mind plays tricks on you guys. I'm telling you, that's why you have to be aware of it. I know it. That's why part of the reason why I joined coaching is like, I feel like now as I'm back into the original coaching program I was in, but that's all because I started seeing that I'm not doing things and I need to restructure things. And so I'm doing a big overhaul. But anyway, speaking of bringing things back from the dead, let's get on topic.
All right, let's go on topic.
Man. But these things are good because they're nuggets. Maybe someone needed to hear that, right? So it'll be good.
They are nuggets. They're
good nuggets.
I like talking about that. All right, so let's go. So 3 signs your prospect will go dark. Okay.
So hold on. But before we get into that, so we're going to talk about bringing your deals back from the dead today, things that can kill your deal. And before you get under contract, your deal will never even happen if your clients or your sales, your leads are ghosting you. Right.
Yes.
So how do we, once they ghost you, once they stop returning your calls, stop engaging, stop responding, what are some tips, Anthony, that we can use to prevent these leads from ghosting our agents? And a little bit requires some follow-up, right? And continuous follow-up. But what are some strategies they could use? Let's start with the lead process, the pre-engagement.
Okay. So not the root cause.
You could talk about the root cause of why they're doing it. And then
a resolution. All right. That's what I was going to do. All right. So I believe, and part of the material that and the content that we'll send out after our show to all of our subscribers is the root cause. It says odds that they're working with someone else, but they're not giving you the time of day, basically. So they're not answering your phones. This literally just happened to us this morning. And we just got another contract that came in. And I'll explain that in just a minute on the resolution. Your point of contact may know a reason why the deal is unlikely materializing by avoiding the situation. Basically, they're either disqualified or the questions are not being answered properly. This is why we believe in intake forms, okay? But that is one of the root causes, okay? And we'll go into many of the other root causes. I think that it's all about, setting proper expectations and knowing what sales cycle that you have. If you're a real estate agent, it's your borrower's consultation with your client and asking those questions. And those are trigger questions so that you're going to obviously get an answer to that question in order to render proper services. I think 9 times out of 10, I don't think, I know 9 times out of 10, the issue is why they're ghosting you as a lead or a prospect is you constantly are changing up your protocol. That would be like Melinda not setting proper expectations to the new attorney coming in, just randomly hiring this person and not setting boundaries, expectations, what she wants, what the future looks like, breaking it down to a science for this individual so that they understand every asset or facet of the industry. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Did I explain that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. The second thing is no need for urgency to purchase. All right. So clients ghosting you because there's no need for it. There's a lack of urgency. We just had a client that would not send their bank statements. And I said to one of the agents that's with the listing agent of the year, I believe she has 73 million right now in Weston. She's closed, amazing listing agent. And I said, look, would you list a house and not ask for proof of funds if there was a cash offer? She's like, no, of course you're going to ask for proof of funds. So in this case, if they're lacking the sense of urgency and they're not sending us bank statements, they've already, taken themselves out of the sales cycle. So I told her, I said, look, make sure they understand that we're not going to provide a pre-approval letter unless we get full documentation. We don't want to, send our pre-approval letter and pending, bank statements to verify that they have, assets to close. So that's lack of urgency. That's the client not physically, cooperating or communicating properly with you as an individual, as a buyer's agent, or with your lender partner. So we feel like, if someone is lacking the sense of urgency, what I used to do, and I still do, is, and our sales manager does that, is we ask a simple question: why are they buying? What's the reason why they're buying? So if you feel like your client is ghosted you because there's a lack of urgency, or they're just giving you the runaround and they keep, saying, I'm going to get to you, and, we're going to go out and, we're going to go look for homes, and I'll send the lender the documentation and blah, blah, blah. I would ask yourself, why are they buying? Or I'd ask the client that. Here's a true story, not to go off topic, but it's the same thing. The same person that didn't send the bank statements, I had a conference call with that buyer's agent. And I simply asked the question, are you serious, really serious about buying? Because this type of market right now, it's not for the weak. It's difficult. It's a seller's market. People are placing bids over asking price. There's a lot of people moving in. Are you really serious about buying? And his answer flat out was, yes, I am. Well, then we need those documents, so you're creating that urgency because there's a lack of urgency. Does that make sense?
Yes. Because sometimes people don't realize how urgent things are in the process, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So you got to give them the urgency. Right?
You're creating the
urgency. So how does one create urgency? By asking the questions?
Asking the questions, setting up templates like we talked about in previous episodes, I believe last episode. And, we were talking about templates and workflows and I would set up a question like, Vera just got a contract that's going to you. We just talked about loan options, but she just quote unquote told me, I never even talked to this guy. I just sent the email out because I noticed that he was looking at my email about 22 times. So she sent the loan options out. The loan options give questions, what is creating urgency for them to choose an option. So how does one create, urgency? It's how you're delivering the message. It depends on the type of urgency. Are they looking to purchase? Well, you're looking at properties. I need to sit down with you. We need to get you pre-approved because we can't go out and place a bid without you being pre-approved. Express that on an email. Or express the logical reasoning on the email of why you'll be in a position of when you actually place the bid, what's going to happen if you're not pre-approved. The seller's not even going to look at you. They're not even going to want to know who you are if you don't send them a DU or a pre-approval letter.
It'll get knocked
really
off right off the top.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So it's back to setting expectations too, right? So it's really an important strategy for any stage of the process, right? It's not just the later stages, the early stages, all the stages. There's expectations that need to be set up for all the stages. All right. So anything else that they should be looking out for bringing sales leads back from the dead? Cover all your pointers you wanted to share?
I did not. There's many more. Lack of due diligence. We just went into that. Proactively hunting for objectives. That's
objections.
A big one.
Objections.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? What does that mean exactly? Because I think this could be very powerful if done properly.
So what is the solution? Like, what is the reason why they've purchased or are not moving forward? Here's a prime example.
What's their why? Well, understanding what's their why, and then what their quirks are.
Exactly.
For lack of a better terminology, but it's really like, what's their thing? Do they have a very opinionated spouse or father or something that's going to come involved? Do they have do they have wrong impressions of what they should be as a buyer or what the market is? Or do they have those are all do they think, are they the first ones in their family? Maybe they're not confident about buying and they just need some pep talks of thinking that it is possible, right? There's so many objections that someone could have, right? It just really depends on, or someone saying, oh, you know what, it's really a seller's market. Yeah, but the interest rates right now are historically so low, your purchasing power is higher. That's why it's a seller's market. So take advantage of the rates now that you can, because you could purchase much more house. So if this is a long-term purchase, you're still sitting pretty because your payments are so low and you're able to afford more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
You could do a cost analysis. You can talk about lowering discount fees. You mentioned, having a decision maker. That's the answer I was trying to look for. A decision maker, looking at who the decision maker is. These are all objections, but that is the key right there. And the way to approach that is, if you don't know the objection of why they're not buying, then you don't know how to approach it. We have, with our tech and the intake forms and everything that we've implemented, we'll see the property field of what the objection is. So if they mark lack of cash to close, I'm asking the question, hey, we noticed that you are lacking cash to close. Talk to me. Do you have a gift? Do you have a 401k? Do you have someone that can loan you money? Like, how do we get the deal to work? You're there, but how do we get you from A to Z? So that's the way to approach it. And I think circling back on a follow-up call, because the money's in the follow-up, that's what I'd be talking about. Or I'd send them some sort of informational guide. We're talking about condos and FAR contract next week. That's going to be deadly. Talk about that. Hey, you're looking at a condo. These are the objections that I'm overseeing with the regulations. Let's talk to my lender. Let's get on the phone, re-engaging with them. The other method too, which is very pitchy and salesy, which I dislike, but we've done it. Quicken Loans possibly denies a deal, or the appraisal comes in sour. We'll pay for the appraisal. Done. We'll put it on our P&L. Let's do a new appraisal. It's a conventional loan. Don't transfer the other one. We don't want it. We'll pay for it. So lowering fees. Would you lower your real estate commission? If that was the case, would you say, hey, I'm making 3%, I'll give you a half a point if that's the case to get you into a house? So that's how to bring back people from the dead. Those are big things that I would really
and being persistent, right? Like being like not giving up, because even for myself, I use myself as an example. And it's not about real estate, but with anything, like I'm very busy. So a lot of times I want to do things, but I got to find the time, right? So that, for me, the time to fill out forms or sign up for things is not because of my lack of wanting to do it. It's my lack of the time. So how can we make it easier? If you're dealing with a client, like a professional client that's working, has kids, all of that, you even think about can I make it easier for them?
Dude, you're hitting everything that that's all, you just said it.
So
This device is making it streamlined. Everything's automated. So people want easier approaches on how to render services.
even like, for example, with my estate planning side of my practice, I don't do it very much. I don't talk about it very much, but I will be talking about it more once I hire an attorney, just because I don't have too much time to do it. So, but the point of me bringing this up is that I kind of revamped my process to allow for questions, and like I have video FAQs and electronic intake forms. So, because people with family and kids and jobs and businesses, they're the ones that are going to be doing this, right? They have something to lose, is why they want to protect. So as they're doing that, what ends up happening? They're busy during the day. They're busy to do a formal consultation, the traditional old school law firms do. You want to do it at night, or when you have on your lunch break, or when you have a chance and you squeeze it in, and allowing for me to modernize the onboarding process. It makes for a smoother, it makes people do it quicker than having to take a day off of work.
The will that you just set in place, that thing was so easy. I mean, it was so
I didn't give you the full client onboarding experience because I know you and like whatever. It's like I just sent you the intake form, but
so you gave me the half-ass approach.
I half-assed you because whatever. But I thought about it. I'm like, I should have done the formal way just to see what he thought about it. But it has to be worked on anyway, so it's fine. But making it easier, and so I put myself in the consumer's position, because I am like my target client, right? I have kids, I have a business, I have assets, and that's who the target. Anyone with kids really is the target too, regardless about anything else, because you need to protect certain things. Without getting into details of the actual what those documents are, clients, when you have kids, like you're already taking off, you're already not sleeping because there's a bee attack at night. You have to take off to bring the kid to the pediatrician. You got to take off work to go to the field trip. You got to take off. So after all that stuff, like you can't take off any more time because like you're maxed out, right? So I wanted to be able to give that flexibility for parents. Put your kids to bed and do it. And that's because that's what I would need for myself.
Dude, you're saying everything that you and I do, and I think we're going to start seeing that turn in the market with a lot of automation and more streamlined approaches rather than old school ways of doing business. So it's interesting.
And the reality is we do have older school generations that are either professionals in the business or customers in the business, but eventually that's going to weed itself out with time. And as we are onboarding the newer generations that are buying right now, they want to be tech. They want to fill it out online. Is there somewhere I could just email it to you? Can you just send me an email with that information? I'm like that. I'm like, I call this. Can you just email me the information, please? Because I'm like doing a million things that I need to like digest it when I have a chance to read it.
So that would be one thing too. Let me touch on that. So client ghosts you. Maybe they don't want to sit there. I'm not sitting. If I'm doing a mortgage, I'm not sitting for 45 minutes to talk to a loan officer and it's like talking to someone from Uber Eats or Amazon. Shoot me. Like there's no way. I'm not doing it. I don't have the time. I don't want to do it. I don't want to listen to that person. I would send a link. How do you send the link? Your lender partner has a link. Ellie Mae has a link to fill out a form application. If they don't have that, then find a new lender partner. The point is that link, we ask that question. Do you have time right now? No, I'm working. Obviously they're working. We ask that question because we know they're working. Our second trigger question would be, hey, listen, we have a link. Do you want to fill the link out? Be proactive. I'll call you at 5 o'clock after you get off work. Yes, done. It's memorized, right? So I'm sending them the link. They're filling out all of the stuff that I don't want to do for 45 minutes. Now I can go prospect. I just brought that client back from the dead because the issue was they don't have time and they want to be with their significant other at 5 to make the decision together, probably over a glass of wine. So boom, send them the link. Now they filled it out. All the dirty work's done and you're physically, analyzing that stuff. But to get their attention, send them products, services, updates, what we're doing next week. That is something I would take that content with condos in the new FAR contract, start really talking about that to your clients, to your lender partners, everybody. Trigger events, promotions, things like that to get their attention, to build the engagement, look at the engagement, to call them and bring them back from the dead. So.
Awesome.
Oh,
Anthony, do you hear any notifications from my computer on the show? No. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was coming through. I wanted to make sure. It's my first time live.
I hear my notifications.
Oh,
but
okay.
I don't know
Just
if you hear
checking.
'em.
Okay, great. So I love that. This is all good stuff. Make sure that we are in control for, an understanding that the sales process. Let's move on to a next scary thing that could happen, right? To bring your deal back from the dead. What if the house is haunted? Now, obviously not literally haunted, but what if the inspection report comes back with a lot of scary things?
Would you ever buy a haunted house? We had so many people say, hell no.
Like
on
literally
that.
haunted house? Like,
Yeah,
or
literally, like a literal, just off topic. I'm curious. Would you ever buy a
okay,
haunted
so
house?
I would not over my dead body buy a
I know,
house
right?
that
The
even if it was
bad
just
energy,
rumored,
I could never do that. I would
even if it
never
was-
do that.
even if it was just rumored to be haunted. No, thank you.
All right, let's go back on top.
Okay, but staying back on top, I don't know, but like, okay, so you got to understand, and I think has set up the expectations with your client ahead of time. Like, what are you comfortable with doing renovations? Are you not comfortable with doing renovations? Understanding the dynamic of that, right? The dynamic of the person's comfortable and like, what are they willing to do? What are they not willing to do? So that right off the bat, from the beginning, when they're looking at the homes, they understand what they're looking at. And you understand, like, they do not have the cash to put a new roof. Right now, you're not going to get a seller to put a new roof. Like, it's not going to happen. So what you can't really go, like, if they're cash strapped are ready to buy, they're going to be cash strapped later to do a roof. So understanding that dynamic, is important, because you're going to waste all your energy going in when you can, just no.
So let me elaborate on that. Here's this is the logical reasoning for everybody in the room and watching live. What Melinda's saying is, and everyone's thinking, how does that have to do with anything with it, bringing back your client from the dead? You lost your client because you did not take a proactive approach by doing your due diligence as a buyer's agent and really investigating and making sure the house is not haunted. So me, if I'm an agent, I'm probably doing what, TrueView Inspections, let's give them a shout out. They do a pre-listing intake form. They have a pre-listing, so if that's for more of a listing agent, but who's to say you can get an inspection report prior? I would probably do that if I'm buying a house. In fact, I just looked at a quadplex in Fort Lauderdale. Place is banged up, and as soon as I went in there, I was like, damn, this sucks. Lost my entire, I got deflated. It's been now a week. Okay. And I've ghosted everybody. I haven't talked to anyone. So there you go. And so if that's great case point, but I'm just saying, like, make sure you're not going into a slum, because if you go into some place that has, a mold on the ceiling, now you got to do a mold inspection, or, you've got pipe in or cloth pipe in, and there's just issues with the electrical panel. That's $1,500, $2,000 to fix. The pool is not resurfaced, or it's not shocked and it's green. Visually going in, you've lost the client. You just showed them a Ferrari with no engine. And so now it's done. Now mentally and physically with their significant other, that's going to be difficult to bring someone back from the dead. And that's what we mean with showing them a haunted house.
or if it looks good on paper, but then
of course.
And then to start, and then you bring them in and you're under contract and you're under inspection, and I need this fixed, I need this fixed, I need this fixed. That will kill your deal, especially nowadays, because sellers are like, and no, pretty much.
No.
You could try. See, it's not that you can't try. And there's some sellers that are giving in a little bit if it's related to something that it's needed for insurance or appraisals or things like that. You're getting some flexibility there because they'll have that hurdle no matter what. But at the end of the day, you really need to make sure that your client knows what the purpose of the inspection is, so that it doesn't create a problem for your deal.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We talk about, like,
Without a doubt,
all the way
man.
around. Like,
And
What is
even
the purpose?
HOAs, that's a whole hour. That's why we're having that next week. But that's the same thing with HOAs. Because think about it. If you keep on showing them houses that it's tough enough to get a contract under contract. So mentally, they're becoming jaded with the whole entire process, with the fact that it's the fifth bid and they can't win over a bid because they might be an FHA candidate, and they're taking conventional cash. That's what most of these sellers want. So that's challenging right there. Now you're showing them something that's banged up that is a disaster. You've lost that deal. You don't even know you lost it, but it's gone. It's ghosted.
Yeah. So keeping with the Halloween theme, another thing that can kill a deal is the other agent is just batshit crazy.
Everyone's gonna be like, yep, we had that.
How many times have you dealt with certain and it's not just the agent, there's just somebody in the transaction, and it could be a party, it could be anyone, right? Or it could be a professional that so sometimes you got to reflect on how you handle things, because sometimes people are reacting to maybe something that you could have done better, maybe something that you could have said better, right? Good relationship with the professionals in transaction is super important. If that's not happening, your client will feel the impact of that. Yeah. Whether you try to prevent it or intentionally try to avoid it, it is what it is. So making sure you have that rapport and are polite, not to trigger, because some people, like, everyone is different in how they react to things. And some people, you say a little quirky comments, a little, snarky sassy comment, something snarky, and it will just, throw things up in the air for a loop. And you don't want to create more triggers than you need to. And I know this, you guys, maybe as if you haven't experienced a transaction where it's a real like back and forth dynamic, it's really a terrible thing to be dealing with for 30, 45 days. I tell you, we have it more often and we see it, and we're like, they're not answering my calls anymore. Can you please call? Like, that's how bad it gets, where we have to be like the mediators. And when you're in that type of a transaction, you make it easier for a party to walk when really they shouldn't. Yeah. And then your deal will die because there's no cooperation from the other professionals. So you need to build rapport, build trust, be kind. It's going to go a long way. And I think it's super important to include that in your process.
We had a listing agent from URG call us last week, and he was asking about a status. And I said, hey, do me a favor. We spoke. It was an awesome conversation. That being said, I was like, hey, do me a favor, check your text message. She's like, yeah, I got the text, but it went into unknown. I'm like, that's going to tell you that our appraisal has been ordered. And obviously we sent an email, but that went to spam. So point is he loved the fact that we had that conversation. So the delivery, so that he does not become batshit crazy and start reaming, the buyer's agent a new one. And then that's going to represent us, obviously. So it's just going to trickle down. And that's what we're trying to prevent is, I feel like people become crazy in the process because the expectations aren't met. There's lack of communication. And there might be that person that just doesn't want to communicate and it has to be their way or the highway on the other side. If that's the case, then, kill them with kindness is what I say. But you want to be tactful about the choice of words. I remember I had an old processor no longer with us. This was a while back. And she's like, yes, sweetie, no, sweetie. And the lady flipped, don't call me sweetie, so it's things like that. I could be your mother, so it's just, you want to have that finesse when you deliver. You don't even realize what you're saying half the time. So
if you're a man, don't call a woman young lady, sweetie, sweetheart. That makes me cringe. No, well, baby, that's like really, but that's a whole other level. But I will say that
pumpkin, since you're wearing but
I don't think like, imagine. But there's some, for me, I get those older male attorneys that were like, listen, sweetheart, listen, young lady, Oh, that like makes my skin crawl, you know? Although young lady nowadays, I'll take it.
say? Then you destroy them over email or
I
what?
actually I don't react.
Yeah, you got to take a day. I always take a day. I have to. I take a day and then I react. And I'll say it's just
yeah.
cool off.
Yeah, I don't react because it's not, and especially in my earlier years when I would go to court for things, I would just put that like frustration into my preparation, and I always ended up winning those hearings because they underestimated me, but that's a different story for another day. But yeah, so how about the people you're dealing with, specifically the vendors, are full of tricks and no treats?
I love these sayings.
I know,
Man.
it's so cute.
Yeah, that's a big one. If you're not working with your lender, I'm sorry, lender partner or title attorney or insurance company. I mean, you know how nice it is to have a quote with my insurance company, hypothetical quotes because DTI ratios are not there. Yeah, no problem, man. Bam, it's done. Like that's amazing. Yeah, that's good service. So you want to make sure you're circling yourself with, likable people and people that give you the respect you need to scale.
So important. I will say, I'll speak on behalf, like talking about a lender vendor, and then maybe you could, because I see a lot of different, lenders, and you see a lot of different titles. So, I'm going to go from that angle.
Good.
Versus
Let's do
talking
it.
about myself.
Good.
What I see lenders do well is when they communicate and respond to emails, not responding and not giving, people will call us and say, are we ready to close? And I don't have the information from the lender yet as to where we stand. That's a big problem, because what happens is when you say, I don't know, I still don't have that information, we've been following up and I'm not getting a response, that makes the lender unreliable. Good. And therefore, no one wants to take their word for it that they just need 3 more days. They just need 2 more days. Because the reality is, sometimes in life and in real estate, we need more time to accomplish what we need to accomplish, right? Because of many varying factors, but not communicating things in the moment is really the biggest problem I see with lenders. And like giving that information up front. Listen, we're trying to be on track for tomorrow's closing, but we're waiting on one more item. This item is out of our control because it's coming from a third party. This third party said they were going to get it to us today, but and we'll confirm as soon as we do, and then we'll be able to meet the deadline. But should that not come as scheduled, this is what's going to happen. We're going to need a couple more days. Yeah, and just having that frank conversation gives it, that's the treat. Even though it's not always what you want to hear, really, that honest, open, continuous, consistent communication about the transaction is what makes for a smooth transaction. That is down the line. And then that's by far the most important thing, I think, for a lender, in addition to really having a processing team that can look at a borrower and say, this is how we're going to structure it. That's the treat. And Anthony's team does that very well for both of them. Not being able to, giving a buyer to a lender and then not knowing that there's a really huge problem until the day of closing. Like, you gotta communicate. You gotta communicate the good and the bad. And if that's not happening, that's a problem. And that's something that that's just going to create poor customer service for everybody.
Man, you said a lot that I could talk about, but I'll try to sum everything together. So from a title side, I've seen everything. I think the trick should not be your reaction to saying, well, that's the title's job. That's the lender's job. It makes you as an individual look insecure, straight up. You can agree to disagree with me. I think that anyone that is calling someone out, even if you know that, it's not the right thing to do. I don't agree with it. I think that because you don't know if you're ever going to work with that person again. It's a very small world. You should always edify someone and always say, hey, it's a great question. You might want to talk to that individual. That's what I do. You want to be that mediator. You want to be that professional. You don't want to be the person that's gossiping, saying, yeah, they suck. I can't believe they dropped the ball. That's a trick. That's not a treat in my book. So I think Melinda's amazing at that when times get tough, because we're not 100%, but if something happens, she'll always edify us and back us up. And that's professional. That's you want to work with someone like that, because to each their own. You can't just find that in an individual. That comes with character, right? So that's my biggest thing. The other thing is setting third-party expectations and having responses and emails. You need to find someone that that is sending you this constant communication. And if they're telling you, oh my God, you're sending me so many emails asking me the same damn question, I'll get to you when I get to it. It's not someone that you want to work with. They're combative, right? So you want to make sure that proper protocol is being rendered. I don't have to worry about that with Melinda's team, but with other title companies, I've had problems. Not too many, but there's always issues here and there. Balancing is always an issue. I just don't think there's proper communication when there's balance in a CD, and I don't think there's any informative education to the client setting the expectations on what is happening. Well, I got a CD. Aren't these the numbers? No, they're not the numbers. They need to be balanced with the lender partner and your title, attorney or whomever you work with, insurance company or title company. The point is that communication, if it's not being had, oh, that's the lender's job. They didn't go over the CD with you. No, that's what they do. We just need to balance it. And then you come, sit down with us. That's unacceptable in my book. If I own a company, I'm calling the client on my behalf, representing that company, saying, let's take the time to, 2 forms of identification, come on in, what type of champagne do you want? Like I'm setting those expectations, right? The last one that I think is detrimental to everybody's business is not going over physical fees from the lender's standpoint. So if the title company is going over, the CD and they're signing, or the notary's going over CD and the loan officer didn't explain any of this, and they're just winging it and saying, yeah, your rate's this, your closing costs are this, you have to wire a check for this amount. Oh, by the way, your payment's this. I didn't know of any of this. I've seen that many cases with, lenders that I used to work for, not anymore. And these were loan officers that I had under me that would not disclose. And I said, I'll never have that ever happen again. That's why we have more of a team environment versus a branch.
What I see a lot is, why is this? So we explain what the fees are, because that's just our process. Here are these fees. This is what this is. But sometimes they're like, well, why is this fee this amount? And that's not a question we can answer. We don't calculate the escrows. We don't do all that stuff, right? And so we could tell when a lender didn't explain it, because there's a buyer with like a ton of questions, and usually all loan related questions. Sometimes there's some other stuff that are under our umbrella too, like about doc stamps and taxes and prorations.
Yeah. I was going to say prorations is probably the biggest.
Yeah, because most people don't understand property taxes to begin with. I've seen a lot of agents ask me the questions. Agents don't understand property taxes. And so that's a huge thing that we just did a webinar this week on last week, understanding property taxes. If you didn't catch that, my firm and the title company hosted that webinar. It's 20 minutes, and I'll share the link for the post show notes, because it's really, if you understand it, you're able to explain those questions versus like delay the whole process, right? Sometimes the questions will come to you first. And so you need to understand as an agent how property taxes work, how prorations work, et cetera. So we break that down.
And so just to recap our theme, how does this bring back a client from the dead? You're never getting a referral out of that, ever. And the money's in the follow-up and your referrals. So, and
not only that, one of the biggest problems is delayed closings, whether it's through products being ordered late by title or loans not closing on time. Those things sometimes can kill a deal because they weren't done earlier.
Yeah.
And nowadays, a seller has an excuse to get out. They can, because they have a higher offer already. right? So we don't want to allow for those things to happen. We want to keep the deal on track. So don't let your deal die with the wrong vendors working it. And last but not least, I know there's different opinions on commissions and how to use them when you need them to get a deal done. Carving out pumpkins is what we want to do. We don't want to be carving out our commissions, right? But
I love these, man.
yeah. But sometimes if you need to throw a couple $100 to get it done,
Let's do it.
or the deal's gonna die.
I know. Isn't that crazy? I wouldn't think
When that
twice.
happen, when those things happen, like I never ask anyone to put their commissions. That's not my job to offer someone else's commissions. But the good agents I work with often, I've seen when the problems come up and we're at a stalemate, they'll come and say, okay, I'll credit, I'll do, or they go pay and they'll just fix something. I've seen agents just last week, an agent I work with, he went, moved the shed, hauled out the junk,
Holy
and
crap.
paid. That came out of his pocket to get the certificate of reoccupancy we needed to close, and we closed right after that. That was a big stalemate. The seller was pissed, the buyer was pissed, everyone was pissed. So the agent just went and did it, and the deal
Instead of what?
closed.
Himself, he did it himself.
Instead of there being a huge stalemate, probably causing a problem and litigation because everyone was so pissed. So he just did it for
Yeah.
$500 and still
Yeah.
got commission. It was, much more than that. So it's like, do you want to lose your listing? Do you want to have to spend more time finding another property?
Yeah.
Your time is not worth that. Like, you think about if you show, especially nowadays, you're showing a lot of properties, right? Because of the market, how it is, putting multiple offers. If you have to do that again, and you're only making one commission, and and it's something you could have avoided, your profit margin is crazy stupid at that point.
Stupid. No
Right?
one thinks that way. They're thinking about
you
the
gotta
paycheck.
think about your time. And I know this is not really about bringing a deal back from the dead, but it could be, because if people want to walk for $500, sometimes people are that what's the word? Stubborn about $500.
Fixed mindset. They're not thinking
Like $500,
abundance.
like, let's make this happen. How do we make this happen? But when you
That's
have
what
a
we just
deal that's
had.
had so many hurdles, and you make them, and you get through all those hurdles, and everyone's super pissed, and then the last thing is like, nope, that's it. I'm putting, that's it. I'm drawing a line in the sand.
Here's what we're doing. All right. And this is because I just got this question 2 weeks ago. Anthony, what are you doing about AMCs and your appraisals? What do you mean? What's the question? The question is, my appraisals are taking forever with this other lender. I'm like, well, how long are we looking at? 3 weeks. We're ordering rushes for free. I'm not going to charge the client $150. Now the rushes are $500. The AMCs are increasing their fees because of the high demand. So, they're charging an astronomical, like rush fees I've seen all the way up to $1,000. But we'll do that. So we'll hit our timelines. Why would I go back to the client and say, hey, by the way, since a third party is just so damn freaking, jam-packed with business, they're going to charge you $1,000. That cuts into my margin. But now I had to explain that to all the agents. We're talking 2 hours. It's not worth the money. It's not, even if it's $2,000, it's not worth the money. My time is worth the money because now I can prospect somewhere else. And that's important. Even with like scenarios that have happened, I've seen people lose their job. I had this. Clinton will vouch for me. Lady lost her job. God bless her. DTI still worked. Ratios had to change. Pricing had to change. $8,000 swing. All right. We ate the $8,000. I'm not going to, why would I put a mom and the children and the father in a scenario that are moving into a house for $8,000? It's done. You lost the deal in my mind. That is how you have to think. And I think if people think like that, and look, I've been there, done that. 162 G's in debt. I understand what it is to live paycheck to paycheck. Believe me, that's an excuse for you to say, I need the money. No, bullshit. You need to make the sale so you can get a referral and then, win on the next deal and then the next deal and the referral deal, and make sure that, you don't do it saying, I'm doing this for you. You're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. So when we ask Marilyn's on here, I'll call you out on it. I've seen her do it numerous times. So she'll slash into her pricing of her commission to justify whatever needs to be fixed on the inspection if the seller doesn't want to fold. And she feels sympathetic at the scenario that they're going to have to replace piping or an AC unit. So it's going the extra mile is what I'll leave it at that.
Good stuff. Yeah, and the thing is, cost benefit analysis.
Yeah. Priceless.
So I hope that wasn't too scary for you guys. But I even put some spiders on my
man. You're very festive.
Yeah, my kids love Halloween, so I love all holidays. Like I'm big on the parties and the holidays and any excuse to decorate. So we're decked out, ready.
No questions. I thought
there was some comments about people saying that their house was haunted, that they had to find the client another house.
Yeah, Ruth said that.
Yeah.
Really? That's crazy.
Yeah, I'm not messing with that. Like, I need to be able to sleep at night. I have enough problems. I don't need even if it's hypothetical, even if it's like a rumor, I don't even want that anywhere in my mind.
I've got enough shit going on. I don't need that. I need my sleep, man.
Exactly. So we've talked about a lot of these topics in more detail in other shows. We wanted to recap about some deal killers that were super important for you guys to remember. So we'll share some past episodes in the recap email where we talk more about sales calls and where we talk more about expectations and things like that. So if you haven't watched some previous shows, or if you're newer to the show, we're happy to share that with you. Just hit us up. Remember, show's free, but share it with your friends. So thank you so much. I hope you have a nice weekend with your family celebrating Halloween. And yeah, that's a wrap for today.
Take care. I'll talk to you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.